Every self-help guru alive is screaming at you to grind harder. But the ancient Stoics whispered something that will completely rewire how you think about getting everything you want. Here's the truth nobody talks about. Society has spent decades hammering the same message into your head: that ambition requires suffering, that achievement is born only from relentless, sleepless pursuit, that if you're not exhausted, you're not serious. But 2,000 years ago, a group of philosophers who built empires, survived slavery, and outlasted emperors discovered a completely different law. And it doesn't involve burning yourself to the ground. Marcus Aurelius, commanding the largest military force on Earth, ruling over 60 million people, would sit alone each night and write in a private journal. He wasn't writing battle strategies or cataloging his conquests. He was reminding himself of one practice: stay rooted in this moment. Anchor yourself to what is real, not what is feared. He understood something most modern humans never grasp. The frantic grip tightens. The relaxed hand receives. And what I'm about to share with you explains precisely why most people work their entire lives toward their dreams, and somehow always end up just out of reach of them. The Stoics were not passive philosophers sitting in comfortable libraries. They were generals, senators, freed slaves, and emperors. They faced war, exile, poverty, and loss. And they still shaped the world around them with something far more powerful than force. They used wisdom. They used intention without desperation. They understood that resistance, when met with calm certainty, dissolves. That desire, held too tightly, destroys itself. Think about what water actually does. It has no muscle, no fury, no agenda, and yet it carves the Grand Canyon. It doesn't attack the stone or argue with the mountain. It flows patiently and persistently, finding every small opening, and eventually the entire landscape surrenders. This is not a metaphor for giving up. This is the secret geometry of effortless power. When your pursuit of a goal is drenched in anxiety, in white-knuckled need, in the constant undercurrent of, what if it never happens, you are generating a frequency that repels the very thing you're chasing. Tension creates contraction. Contraction closes doors. Open hands, not clenched fists, are what receive. But there's a Stoic practice, one most people have never been taught, that changes everything from the inside out. The Stoics called this alignment with logos, the rational, purposeful current underlying all of existence. When you align yourself with that current, instead of fighting against it, your actions become precise, your mind becomes clear, and the opportunities you've been straining to see suddenly appear right in front of you. Today, I'm going to walk you through 10 Stoic principles that will permanently shift how you create your life. Not theories, not motivational decoration. These are practical frameworks that have been stress-tested across 2 millennia of human experience by people who faced challenges that would break most modern people within a week. Each principle will show you exactly how to release the invisible tension that has been choking your momentum and step into the natural flow state where what you want begins finding you. Before we go deeper into this, if this kind of wisdom speaks to you, hit like right now. It signals to me that you're ready for real transformation, not surface-level hype. Type in the comments, "I release the grip and I receive," and share this with someone whose potential is being blocked by pressure they don't even know they're carrying. Subscribe to Stoic Zeno, because this is just the first conversation in a much bigger journey. And stay with every single part of this video. What's coming next is the part most people need the most. Rule 1. The paradox of detached wanting. Here is the maddening paradox at the heart of human desire. The more desperately you want something, the more it moves away from you, almost as if it can sense your desperation and decides not to be associated with it. This isn't poetic exaggeration. There's a precise psychological and energetic reason why this happens. And once you understand it, you'll never chase anything the same way again. Epictetus, literally owned by another human being, with no legal rights, no property, no freedom of movement, became one of the most respected philosophical minds in history. not because of what he acquired, but because of how little he needed to feel whole. He taught that true abundance is not about accumulating great things, it's about needing fewer things to feel complete. The person who is content without the thing they want is paradoxically the person most likely to receive it. When you don't need something, you stop sending out the invisible signal of lack. You stop operating from, "I am incomplete without this." That shift, from scarcity thinking to sufficiency thinking, changes what you attract. Think about the people in your world who seem to have things flow toward them without visible effort. They're not the ones frantically networking at every event or flooding social media with manifestation affirmations while internally screaming with anxiety. They're the ones who hold their goals like they hold a bird in their palm, with enough firmness to keep it there and enough gentleness not to crush it. This is what the Stoics called preferred indifference, and it is one of the most sophisticated psychological tools ever developed for creating the life you actually want. You prefer to have what you're working toward. You take purposeful, consistent action toward it. But your internal peace is not held hostage by whether it arrives on your preferred schedule. Your sense of worth is not parked in the outcome. This creates an energetic signature of confidence rather than desperation. And confidence is magnetic in ways that desperation never can be. Practice this today. Hold your biggest goal in your mind. Then breathe out and silently say, "This," or something even better. Notice how that single phrase deflates the pressure and simultaneously expands the possible. That's not resignation. That's strategic openness. Desire with peace, and not with panic, and the universe will answer. Rule 2. The magnetic force of full presence. Most people are trying to create a better future while mentally living everywhere except the only place where creation is actually possible. Right now. Your power, your entire manifesting capacity, exists in the present moment. Not in your vision board, not in your visualization practice at 5 a.m. It lives in the quality of attention you bring to what's directly in front of you. Seneca understood this. He wrote that genuine contentment comes from engaging fully with the present, without borrowing anxiety from a future that hasn't arrived yet. This is not abstract philosophy. It's practical architecture. When your mind is fully present, not rehearsing tomorrow, not reviewing yesterday, you operate at your sharpest cognitive frequency. You notice the offhand remark that's actually a career-changing introduction. You feel the intuitive pull to take a slightly different path that leads to exactly the connection you needed. You read the room accurately because you're actually in the room, not somewhere inside your own anxiety. And here's what almost nobody understands about presence. It's not just awareness, it's energy. When you're genuinely here, you're not carrying the accumulated weight of past failures or the anticipatory dread of future scenarios. You're pure potential. And pure potential is extraordinarily attractive to both people and circumstances. The most magnetic people you've ever met weren't magnetic because of their accomplishments. They were magnetic because of their attention. They looked at you when you spoke. They didn't glance at their phone. They made you feel for just a moment like you were the only person in the room. That quality, full presence, is rarer than talent. It's rarer than money. And it's available to you completely free right now. The beautiful inversion that Stoic philosophy teaches is this. The moment you stop living for the future, you begin building a better one. Opportunities don't live in tomorrow. They live in the sharpness you bring to today. Your breath is your bridge back. Every time your mind drifts into what if or if only, feel your feet on the ground. Name 3 things your senses are picking up right now. This is not a meditation technique. This is a manifesting practice. The present moment isn't just where you exist. It's where you create. Rule 3. How obstacles secretly serve you. What if I told you that every single obstacle currently standing between you and your goal is actually working for you? Even if it feels like the universe has turned against you. Marcus Aurelius presided over a Roman Empire being ravaged by plague. He led military campaigns in brutal conditions. He watched people he trusted betray him. And through all of it, He wrote one of the most repeated lines in Stoic philosophy: "Whatever stands in the path of action becomes the path of action." This isn't optimistic framing. This is strategic reorientation. The obstacle isn't the opposite of your progress. It is, in many cases, the mechanism of it. Most people approach a setback with one of two responses. They either crumble under its weight and conclude that the universe is hostile to their dreams, or they fight back with raw force, exhausting themselves against something that won't move. But the Stoics modeled a third response: acceptance without submission. They looked at the obstacle and asked, "What does navigating this develop in me that I'll need for what's coming next?" Because here's the uncomfortable truth: you are not yet the person who can fully handle the level of success you're asking for. The obstacles between you and it are often the training ground. The oyster doesn't produce a pearl by fighting the sand. It produces it by working with the irritation, layer by layer, until something valuable emerges. Your setbacks are not evidence that you're on the wrong path. They are often the most precise confirmation that you are on exactly the right one. When you stop pouring energy into resisting what is and redirect it toward navigating what is, you become efficient in a way that pure ambition never allows. You become flexible. And flexible flowing things outlast rigid, brittle ones every single time. Next time something collapses that you had planned, pause. Sit with it for one breath. Then ask, how is this moment preparing me? What is this rerouting me toward? Sometimes a delay is protection. Sometimes a refusal is redirection. Sometimes the no you receive is a clearing of space for a yes that's incomparably bigger. The path blocked is often the path perfected, if you're wise enough to see it. Rule 4. Reclaiming your inner authority. You've been handing the remote control of your internal state to the world around you, and that's exactly why what you want feels so perpetually out of reach. This is not a judgment. It's the default setting of almost every human being on the planet. Epictetus, again, the freed slave who had every external reason to be broken, taught that nothing and no one can genuinely harm your core self without your conscious or unconscious permission. This isn't feel-good philosophy. This is a declaration of radical sovereignty. Every time you say, "I'll feel good about myself when the bank account looks different," or "I can relax once they approve of my choices," you are outsourcing your inner authority. You are making external conditions the governors of your internal world. And when your internal world is governed from outside, your manifesting power collapses completely. Because here's what nobody tells you: the energy that creates the external world comes from the internal world. And if the internal world is held hostage to external conditions, it can never be the source that changes them. When you reclaim your inner authority, you stop requiring the world's permission to feel whole. You stop making achievement responsible for your peace. And paradoxically, that shift, choosing well-being as an internal decision rather than an external reward, makes you dramatically more effective at creating external results. People are drawn to those who don't need their approval. Opportunities arise for those who aren't frantic to find them. The Stoics weren't teaching passivity. They were teaching a kind of rootedness, a settled inner ground that doesn't shake when the weather changes. Practice this before you open your phone tomorrow morning. Ask yourself, regardless of what I'm about to encounter today, what internal state do I choose to bring to it? Then honor that choice. Your external world is a long echo of your internal one. Change what's generating the sound, and the echo has no choice but to follow. Rule 5. The power of purposeful stillness. Our culture has declared war on stillness. Busyness is a status symbol. The person who wears exhaustion like a badge is praised. But the Stoics, who built civilizations, understood something our perpetual motion culture has lost. Action and progress are not the same thing. Motion and momentum are not the same thing. The difference between them separates those who achieve from those who merely stay occupied. Much of what we call taking action is, on honest inspection, anxiety wearing the costume of productivity. We stay busy because stillness forces us to sit with our doubts and fears. We generate activity as escape. But that frantic energy is often the very force that pushes away what we most want to attract. Strategic stillness is different from passivity. It is the discipline to wait when waiting is the correct move. Think of the chess grandmaster who sits motionless for 20 minutes before a single precise move, while an amateur shuffles pieces just to feel useful. The grandmaster's stillness is not indecision, it's precision. There's a season for planting and a season for trusting the dark, and the farmer who digs up seeds every 3 days to check on them never harvests anything. This week, identify one area where anxious action has replaced aligned action. What would it mean to pause, to let the seeds germinate, to trust the soil, to resist controlling what needs time to develop? The universe responds to those quiet enough to receive what it's already offering. Stillness is not weakness. In the Stoic tradition, it is the highest form of strategic intelligence. Rule 6. Gratitude as a creative force. Most people think gratitude is about manners, about being polite, about saying thank you when someone holds the door. But the Stoics understood something so much deeper and more powerful about appreciation. They knew it was one of the primary engines of creation. When you shift from cataloging what's missing to genuinely appreciating what's present, something changes at the level of perception, and that perceptual shift changes what's possible. Marcus Aurelius began each morning not by reviewing his agenda, but by preparing himself for the difficult reality of human interaction. He reminded himself that people would be frustrating, ungrateful, and difficult. And he chose to approach them with patience anyway, finding within that choice a kind of private gratitude for his own capacity to respond wisely. Even in the acknowledgement of difficulty, he found grounds for appreciation. Real Stoic gratitude is not performative positivity. It is not pretending that everything is fine when things are clearly not fine. It is choosing, consciously, to notice what is working even while acknowledging what isn't. It's recognizing that your struggles are developing capacities in you, that your challenges are educating you, that your detours are often taking you somewhere better than your original destination. When you start your day from a place of genuine appreciation, your brain, literally, neurologically, begins scanning the environment differently. Instead of filtering for threats and gaps, it begins filtering for opportunities and openings. You start noticing what's available rather than what's absent. And what you consistently notice is what you consistently move toward. Gratitude doesn't just feel good. It reconfigures the lens through which you see your life. And the lens determines the life. The magic multiplies when you express it outward. Tell someone what they mean to you. Write the thank you message you've been meaning to send. Pause before you eat and notice that you have food. Pause before you sleep and acknowledge that your body kept you alive through another day without asking anything in return. When you genuinely appreciate what you've already been given, you stop communicating to the universe through the frequency of lack. And that shift is the beginning of abundance. Rule 7. Becoming the author of your emotional state. Your emotions are not things that happen to you. They are things that are created by your interpretations, your habitual thoughts, and your practiced responses. And when you truly internalize that distinction, you gain access to a level of power that most people never even know exists. Seneca observed that a mind that has learned to seek what is enduring eventually stops being jerked around by every new stimulus. Your emotional reactions feel automatic, but they are not truly automatic. They are deeply practiced, and what has been practiced can be repracticed. Imagine two people facing the same rejection, a job they wanted, a relationship that ended, an opportunity that collapsed. One person collapses under it and spends months in the wreckage. The other person feels the full weight of it, doesn't deny it, doesn't suppress it, and then, within days, uses it as fuel to rebuild with greater clarity than before. Same circumstances, entirely different outcomes. The only variable is emotional sovereignty. Emotional sovereignty is not emotional suppression. The Stoics were not advocating for turning yourself into a robot without feeling. They were advocating for becoming the author of your experience, rather than its passive subject. You feel anger, fully, without pretending otherwise. But you choose whether anger writes your next chapter. You feel fear, and you acknowledge it clearly, but you decide whether fear determines your next action. Your emotions are messengers with important information. The Stoic practice is to read the message without letting the messenger take the wheel. When a strong emotion rises, the practice is simple. Before responding, ask, "What is this trying to tell me? What can I learn here? How do I use this energy constructively rather than destructively?" This creates a space between stimulus and response, and in that space lives your freedom and your manifesting power. Because here's the truth, your emotional state is your creative state. When you're in sovereignty, when you're generating peace internally, regardless of external noise, you attract peaceful circumstances. When you can find genuine joy in the present moment, rather than deferring it to some future arrival, joyful things find you. Rule 8. The revolutionary practice of enough. We exist inside a system that requires you to feel perpetually insufficient, not because insufficiency is your truth, but because your dissatisfaction is someone else's revenue stream. The machine needs your hunger. The Stoics saw through this trap 2,000 years ago. Their prescription was the most subversive thing you can do inside a culture of more. Decide that you are already enough. Seneca, whose material wealth was extraordinary, wrote with absolute clarity that poverty is defined not by what you have, but by the insatiability of what you crave. He found that fulfillment lived not in what he accumulated, but in how fully he appreciated what already existed. The philosophy of enough doesn't mean lowering your aspirations. It means refusing to let the absence of your next goal become the reason you can't access peace right now. It means discovering that the feeling you believe your goal will give you is, in some form, available to you today, with what you already have. Here's the paradox. When you genuinely feel like enough, you stop operating from desperate lack, and the universe responds to sufficiency with generosity. The most magnetic people in your world are not the most accomplished. They're the ones who seem grounded in themselves, excited about what's coming without needing it to validate what already is. That groundedness is confidence. It's knowing your value was never conditional on your achievements. From that foundation, you pursue dreams not from fear of not having them, but from the joy of moving toward them. That difference in source energy changes everything about what you create. Tonight, before sleep, inventory 5 things in your life that are genuinely remarkable. Things you've stopped noticing because you adapted to them. That richness is real. That is the foundation from which miracles are built. Rule 9. The manifesting power of being genuinely yourself. One of the most devastating and least discussed blocks to creating the life you want is this: showing up as a version of yourself you manufactured for other people's approval. When you are performing a character, when your speech patterns, your goals, your values are optimized for external validation rather than internal truth, you create a fundamental misalignment between what you're projecting and what you actually are. And the universe, like a very literal GPS, can only bring you what you're actually broadcasting. Marcus Aurelius wrote a reminder to himself that the person who stops monitoring what their neighbors are saying and doing liberates themselves from an extraordinary amount of unnecessary suffering. The courage to be genuinely yourself isn't just a personal freedom issue. It is a manifesting architecture issue. When you're not being authentically you, when you're editing yourself for consumption, you are literally broadcasting a false location. How can what's meant for you find you if you're hiding where you actually are? Authentic expression is not the absence of tact or kindness. It's the presence of truth. It means pursuing the goals that actually excite your particular soul, not the ones that look impressive from outside. The extraordinary quality of authenticity is that it works as a sorting mechanism. When you stop trying to be palatable to everyone, the right people find you more easily. When you stop chasing goals that don't genuinely belong to your nature, the ones that do align start appearing with surprising clarity. This takes courage because living authentically means some people won't understand you, and some opportunities that looked right will reveal themselves as wrong. But that's not failure. That's precision. You're not losing things. You're clearing space for what actually fits. Your most powerful creative self is your most genuine self. Not the polished, curated version. Not the one shaped by everyone else's expectations. The one that, when left alone with its honest thoughts, knows exactly what it loves and what it's built for. Everything you're meant to have is broadcasting on the frequency of the real you, not the constructed one. Rule 10. Surrendering to timing. Wiser than your own. The last principle, and perhaps the one that will create the most immediate relief in your life, is the practice of trusting a timing that is larger and more intelligent than the schedule your anxiety has written. Marcus Aurelius wrote that wisdom means learning to accept the things fate binds to us, to work with the current of events rather than perpetually against it. The Stoics believed that the universe is not random, that it operates according to a rational, purposeful order that our limited human perspective cannot always read from the inside of a single lifetime, or a single year, or a single difficult month. Your impatience, and I say this with full understanding of how genuinely painful waiting can be, is often the single biggest impediment to receiving what you've been working toward. When you insist that your manifestation arrive on your timeline, you are often forcing something into a shape it cannot yet hold. You are like someone trying to eat a meal before it's finished cooking. The food is coming, the ingredients are there, but your demand for it right now will ruin it. Delays are not denials. They are frequently forms of preparation. The universe is sometimes developing the exact conditions your manifestation needs in order to be what it's supposed to be when it arrives. Sometimes you need more development, more resilience, more clarity, more capacity before what you're asking for can be genuinely received and sustained by you. Think about the best things that have ever entered your life. How many of them arrived when you planned? How many appeared through paths you didn't map, at moments you didn't anticipate, in forms you almost didn't recognize? Almost none of your greatest gifts arrived on schedule. They arrived on time, which is something entirely different from your time. This is not an instruction to become passive. It is not permission to stop working. It is an invitation to work with full dedication while holding the outcome with open hands. To do your part completely, and then trust the process with something deeper than hope. Trust it with your peace. When you release the grip of timeline anxiety, you stop exhausting yourself trying to control the uncontrollable. You stop missing the extraordinary gifts arriving in this present moment because you're so fixated on the gifts you think should have arrived last month. You begin inhabiting the now. And that's where the magic has been waiting for you all along. Closing. The ancient Stoics didn't have vision boards or manifestation retreats, but they understood what most modern self-development culture misses entirely. Becoming is the prerequisite for receiving. You don't get what you want. You get what you are. And who you are is built, through these 10 principles, into the precise kind of person toward whom what you want naturally moves. 2. When you practice detached wanting, present moment awareness, acceptance of resistance, inner authority, strategic stillness, genuine gratitude, emotional sovereignty, the philosophy of enough, authentic expression, and trust in timing wiser than your own, you stop fighting the river and begin moving with it. This isn't lowering your standards. This is elevating your consciousness to a level where chasing becomes receiving, where the right people, the right resources, the right moments appear not through force, but through alignment. What you're working toward is already moving toward you. Your task is simply to become someone ready to receive it. Relax the grip, trust the current, show up fully and in peace. You don't attract what you chase, you attract what you become. If this moved something in you, why, like it right now? It helps Stoic Zeno reach those who need this most. Comment: I release the grip and I receive. Share this with someone whose potential is being blocked by pressure they can't name. Subscribe to Stoic Zeno for more wisdom that goes deeper than surface-level self-help. Until next time, stay grounded, stay clear, and stay open to what's already on its way.